Welcome everybody, it's Martin from Cockpit Coaches, and today it's a pleasure to welcome an opera singer or a former opera singer from Austria, Bernhard Kerres. Bernhard, nice to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Martin, and hello to everyone.
Yeah, I could go on already because your career has been so inspiring and all the transitions you've been going through, but I give the word over to you. Maybe you want to just tell the people about your history, where you started and where you came from and where you are today.
I'm very happy to do that. Yes, I went through a couple big transitions, which some of them weren't planned like that. So since childhood, I was completely in love with classical music. And I know that some out there think how crazy that the small child and the teenager and so on doesn't have anything better to do but to run to the opera house, to go into concerts and to love classical music. Well, the one thing I can say, I grew up in Vienna, and that's still the hometown of classical music. So I got it in all, yeah. And when I was 17, I went to school in England, and there I could follow my passion and have a lot of music classes and sing in the choir and play in the band and play in the orchestra. It was heaven for me. It was really, really great. And there they sent me from the choir to the chamber choir, and I sang in Canterbury Cathedral, some of the most amazing concerts in my life. And then they sent me on to the singing teacher. And the singing teacher was nobody less than Dennis Wicks. Dennis was himself an amazing singer who had a tremendous career, with one little kind of note to that, and some of the listeners will laugh about that. He hated flying, yeah. So he made his career in London, and he didn't go out. He flew once to Argentina, but no more than that. So, but he was a fantastic singer himself, and he taught me all about that. And so I went into singing, I studied it, I sang for a couple of years. I was on stage in very small roles with some of the biggest stars in the singing world, like Jose Carreras or Agnes Balzer and so on. So I did really fantastic productions, but it was in 1995 and I was just 28 years old, and I sang a concert in a castle in Schloss Elmau in Germany. This is a very fantastic castle. It's like, how shall I say it? It's in a valley, it is in the Bavarian countryside, it is kind of a bit magical and mystical as well. And I came from the stage and said, that was my last concert. And this realization was suddenly there, and I had to change my career. And the decision was very, very clear that I'll do that. And so I thought about it, how to change my career, and I went then very quickly into consulting for the arts because I needed some transition into an MBA program. Did an MBA program, went into consulting for tech and strategy consulting with Booz Allen Hamilton at that time. Was hired into top management positions, was CEO of a stock market listed tech company in Germany. All that, had a stellar career in business, but my passion for classical music was still there, and I was on the board of the concert house in Vienna, and suddenly my predecessor stepped down, and so I was actually in the search committee to find a new CEO and artistic director, and all my friends said, well, why don't you do it? I said, I'm too young for that. I was 38, 39 at that time. And I thought, no, I'm really too young for that. You do that as such a position in your late 40s, beginning of 50s. But one friend sat me down for dinner and said, if you really like it, don't be stupid, don't wait for it, go for it. And so I withdrew myself from the committee and put my hat into the ring and became the job, ran the house for 6 years. And after 6 years, I thought, well, I'm still not 50. And all my colleagues, or so many of my friends and colleagues from my MBA program, did startups, all this crazy internet world. It was amazing. I said, shit, why don't I have an idea? And then I had an idea. and founded the LinkedIn for classical musicians called Hello Stage, brought that to Silicon Valley. Didn't make the money I wanted to make with it. Actually, financially it failed. From the value I got out of it, I got out significantly more from it than I could ever hope for. Wonderful friendships and great work. But what I realized is that many musicians don't have a clue about business and entrepreneurship and so on. So I wrote a book about entrepreneurship for classical musicians. I teach that. And I went more and more into coaching because I just love working with people and being a good, but sometimes a critical friend in the path of changes of your life. So that wasn't a short answer, Martin. I'm sorry.
No, but it's a very profound answer, and something really resonated with me here, because you said this childhood dream also becoming an opera singer, and we as pilots, that's what we're seeing right now, as especially with the airline industry being so affected by everything. So now we're seeing a lot of pilots, they still have this childhood dream, but most possibly there are not enough pilot jobs for everybody around. So now the transition is like coming from the outside, being pushed onto them. And we identified like pros and cons of the pilot mentality that could help you out there in business as well, but also which can prevent you from even taking the step. For example, for me, as I said, like earlier in our conversation we had before this call, was that it took me 10 years between the decision to leave the cockpit to actually doing it. And now I would like to hear a bit more from you. What happened to you there? You said like you came off the stage in Germany and you said, okay, that was it. And what helped you at the time as well to really cope with that? Because from what I'm hearing is it was also like a kind of childhood dream that you always wanted to do that. So what helped you, instead of like taking you 10 years like myself, to really go and fast into the execution, to go a different path?
Yeah, it was absolutely a childhood dream. Yeah, since childhood, I listened to opera. I went to opera performances. I've seen some of the biggest stars which were around them. I went to concerts and so on. And it was an absolutely dream when Dennis told me the first time, told me saying, I think you should do something about your stage. You could be a great singer. It was amazing. It was really a dream came true. And then having the opportunity to sing with some of these great singers was really amazing. So it was more than a dream. But I had to realize, first of all, that I was not good enough. Yeah, I was not good enough to do a really good career or even a decent career. Yeah, I could have done a mediocre to really bad career. And that comes back then to what probably some pilots are facing at the moment, is simply also a question about economics and making money. Yeah. I would not have been able to make a decent living, and I'm not speaking about any kind of luxury or anything, but a decent living where I don't kind of worry too much about money all the time, have I stayed in singing. And that's something I did not want to do. Yeah. I wanted to have a decent living and do something what I enjoy. My consideration at that time, and actually also later, was there were three things always in a career. There's the function you have, there's the industry you're in, and there's your network. And in my view, yeah, and that might go completely counter to what other people or even Martin thinks, is you should try only to change one of these three things. So when I went off the stage, I knew that I needed some transition into business. So I thought I keep my industry, which was classical music and the arts world. I keep the network in that, but I changed the function. So I went into consulting for that. And after my MBA program, I said, okay, I keep the function, which is consulting. I changed the industry into tech. Yeah, well, I wasn't really good with my networks all the time, I must admit. Yeah, so that's definitely in hindsight something where I say, I could have been stronger in maintaining my networks and keeping my networks. But it also had to do a bit with geography and not only with your professional network, but also with your personal network. So yeah, if you can just change one of them, and if you're going out of of piloting. It's probably, yeah, it's a different function, and but you have so much of technology, of travel industry know-how, and yeah, that it is inspiring. And I must say, I mean, I met so many inspiring pilots in my life, because I flew quite a lot, and before 9/11 this was all easier, yeah. But even later on, yeah, absolutely inspiring people who can make their career anywhere.
Mm. Yeah, you really said something, the three things you just shared, that this is really powerful, because looking at that right now as well, because there's so many pilots available and so little jobs, this is also a consequence on the conditions on offer. Even if you continue as a pilot, most likely you will see the conditions on offer declining as well. So that could be another motivation to move outside, and then to look at these three: the function, pilot most likely not anymore, but within your industry where you have a lot of network, and then to look at that, how you can really build upon that. And what you said was also, when you said, yeah, I was not good enough as an opera singer, this is like a real honest self-assessment. And that's what we're also teaching in the Pilot Realignment course, where we're really supporting the pilots to really have an honest look at themselves. What are your strengths, and where you have areas to improve, but really focus on your strength, and to go out then and work with those to continue. Maybe same airline industry, but different function, using your network. And what also fascinated me, that you actually went back, that you said, okay, you're going back to university, because you've been, I mean, for an opera singer, you've been studying obviously for a long time and doing all these practical training, but you actually invested to go back to university, to being able to get a position already with your dream university, London Business School, and then to really persist and continue. And when I was listening to one of your podcasts, which I found very inspiring, was that you were like the outlier there, you know, like the opera singer from Austria. What does he want to do in business here? It's like the canary bird, you know, like what are you doing here? And you shared a story which stuck with me, when he said, like, normally during the summer you were at these summer jobs with all these consultant firms, and they were coming in to hold these receptions, but you would never get an invitation. But you actually said, okay, I'm going to invite myself. And this is something, really, be bold, take risks. And maybe you want to share a little bit about this path as well. Sometimes you really have to go for it, even you have to break the rules.
Yeah, I think being bold is very important, and there are many parts in my career where I was bold, and I just decided to go for it. And so, actually, in the first step, before I entered London Business School, I knew in order to be accepted at London Business School, I needed to have something which was close to the business. So I thought, okay, I know the arts world. I have a bit of a network in there. I could do consulting because I was always good in speaking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there was no consulting for the arts in Austria. There was a bit in Germany. Yeah. There were a couple in Britain. At that time, you know, you wrote letters still. Yeah. No email or so. And so I wrote letters to all the companies and applied and said I would love to work for them. And one of these companies, actually Adrian Ellis, wrote back to me a very nice letter saying, hey, if you happen to be in London, drop by. Well, 2 weeks later, I happened to be in London, which meant I took my last money together, bought a ticket to London and a cheap hotel room somewhere, and dropped by his office and said, hi, by the way, I am in London, would be great to see you. And out of that came the job which helped me transitioning into the MBA. And it is the same thing when I took Hello Stage to Silicon Valley. So Hello Stage was my startup, and I was in my mid-end 40s at that time. And the Chamber of Commerce in Austria invited me, saying, you know, there's a pitch event for our international program. You should pitch. And there are a couple of people from Silicon Valley. Why don't you come? I said, geez, okay, they gave me money anyway. They were kind, so I'll go and pitch, right? And then I won the pitch, and the pitch meant that I would have a desk for 3 months in somewhere in Silicon Valley. And I said, oh, I love Silicon Valley. And within 2 weeks, I changed everything and moved to Silicon Valley for a year. Yeah, and it was an amazing year, which I don't want to miss. Yeah, so I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago in German about the Kairos moments. Yeah, we all have moments in our life which are very lucky moments, moments where we can take a decision which is good for us, but they only have a certain kind of window of opportunity, and you need to take them within them. And it takes guts to do that. But I can tell you one thing, I was happy enough to have a couple of these moments and to have the guts to go for it. It was great. I would not miss it for the world.
Wow. This is when you said about the timing. I mean, we know from flying, when we do decision making, there's always like this kind of, as you say, window of opportunity, but also with time window to take decisions. And that's one of my mentors also said to me, Martin, you know, never waste a good crisis. For example, now I see now is a great time to actually take decisions, be bold, and also be the first mover instead of being like the fence sitter where everybody's trying to, you know, like to evaluate and take a safe decision. That's what we're also teaching in the program, really to go into your body and trust your gut. I heard that more than once from you now, trust your gut, because it's so, because really because pilots are very cognitive, we're very in our minds, and we haven't used really the vast majority of expertise that's lying in our body, but nobody ever told us how to get access to that and to trust this gut feeling, be bold, and then move forward. And this Kairos moment, I believe now is a big Kairos moment for many people. They just have to move through, be bold enough to move through your own fears and the things that holding you back, maybe old mentality constraints you have from your career as being a pilot, and to take decisions now and move forward. And right now, I can see, I mean, I could talk for hours with you about this. This is really inspiring. If you would distill it down now to like, because we're just coming up on time there, what is it like the one thing what would be your like recommendation or your giveaway for the pilots? What's the one thing they should be looking at right now in this moment where the industry is really taking a dip, and how to move forward from your experience and your expertise?
I had the luck because I was flying so much to get to know many, many great pilots, mostly commercial airline pilots, sometimes private plane pilots, sometimes even fighter pilots. The one thing which I admired about all of them was what you just said, Martin. Yeah, they are very much in their head. They take logical decisions. They know exactly, you know, how to follow the logbook and what to do when and then. Yeah? That's fantastic. But that's actually for me, and I might go out on a limb here, not what a pilot is about. A pilot is about something when something goes wrong, yeah, or something is not quite as it should, yeah, that a pilot has all the knowledge, but also this gut feeling saying, I need to do this now, yeah. And yes, I was in situations of, you know, in America, avoiding a hurricane, for example, yeah, in a Boeing 747. Yeah, as a passenger, it was not easy. But the pilot gave us the feeling that everything was okay, and he probably knew exactly what he did, what to do, and. And this ability not only to know logically what needs to be done now, but also the ability to take a decision, because when you're flying towards a hurricane, you know you should not at some point turn left or right or wherever and be in contact with whatever you do, ground control, I don't know. Yeah, you can't say, oh, no, I'll wait for another 5 minutes and let's see, perhaps the hurricane is gone by then. No, it's not gone. And it's the same as actually with that crisis. Yeah, you have the crisis right into your face. Yeah, it is there. Yeah, and so it's the time to take the decision now. And pilots are so used to take decisions in crisis moments. Yeah, just take it in your life as well as you would do it in your in any kind of plane ride.